Hello guys, this is Del Capert and this is The Real Spiel. And I have been missing in action, and I apologize for that. But I just want to have a conversation as I clean my screen. I want to have a conversation about why. Have you ever fallen into a mental rut? I was in a mental rut. Okay, I really wasn't feeling very well. It wasn't a physical rut, it was definitely an emotional mental rut. And I'm very self-diagnostic. We're going to talk today about men's mental health. So all the Cyclopses are in the building. Adi Tani, thank you for calling and checking on me. I call her Saint Anne. Miss Anne, thank you for calling and checking on me. Of course, Yvonne Gentles, my right hand, was keeping me up in prayer. I'm very self-diagnostic, and I think when it comes to our mental health, men and ladies, help us, support us real quick. When it comes to our mental health, we have to be self-diagnostic, because we don't like the doctor, we don't like psychiatrists, we don't like therapy, and I am at the top of the list of all. I don't go to the doctor. There's no way you can drag me to a therapist. You can't drag me to a therapist. Okay. You can't drag me to a psychiatrist or psychologist. You couldn't drug me and take me there. I'd wake up and still run away. That's not really our thing. So you have to be diagnostic. So I went through a process where I was realizing something was going on, all the circumstances that affect Black men in North America. We have to be extremely cognizant of how the environment of our everyday lives is really affecting our mental health. I have so many great friends around me that it's very difficult for me to go silent, to go completely quiet. But my self-diagnostic aspect of me is knowing that when I go quiet, that's number one. When I go silent or quiet, when I stop wanting to have communication, things like that, I realize, okay, all the things that you say are not bothering you, those things are bothering you. Those things are affecting you. Number two, those who might notice my physique or not, I'm in the gym every day, because the gym for me is medicine. It's my medicine. I need it. I absolutely need to go to the gym, not because at 53 years of age, I need to stay looking like an Olympic athlete. It's just because without that tension release, I don't know what I would do. And number three, I realize also that when I go through my periods of time, I don't like to contact people. I stop reaching out, right? So going silent is a thing that I do sometimes, because I want to figure out what's going on in my mind. But when I absolutely don't want contact from people who I normally want contact, I say, okay, what's happening? And so I started tracking how many days I've not come back on the spiel, and I realized that the spiel for me is also a place of, I don't like to vent on social media. I don't think it's appropriate, but it's definitely a therapeutic place for me, because there's so much that God has put inside of me that I wish to share with many of you, and I think it can help a lot of people. I've had communication with a brother that you're going to see on Tuesday, Herman Rome, young bro from Chi-Town. We're going to come on here, and we're going to have, if he allows it, a weekly show addressing this very concern and others with the younger Black community. Him and I were supposed to come on actually yesterday, and I just was not in the headspace to do it. And we spoke earlier, and I just wasn't in the headspace to really put it all together. So please look out for that. That's happening. It's coming up. Good thing. All praises to look up. Thank you very much. Good day, all. Brian Holmes, Georgian Media Center. Yeah. Listen, mental health. So statistics demonstrate that men from the ages of 19 to 29, a demographic that I am way out of, are the leading individuals who commit suicide. The same demographic of women, so I say commit suicide, the same demographic of women, they actually try more. There's more, the percentage of them trying to kill themselves is higher, but they're not as successful. Those young boys are very successful. And so once you get out of that age bracket, it is extremely likely that you have gone through the same thing, but you have had different coping mechanisms or different supports to help you get through that particular process. And I was trying to look up a couple of articles just before it came out, and but there's a lot of conversation about how discrimination affects Black men. And granted, to those who are not Black men, discrimination could be perceived or actually real. And do some of us cry wolf sometime? Maybe. But is discrimination the infrastructure of North American society? Absolutely. Right. So sometimes some people are much more hypersensitive to it. They might actually see it from a long way off, and where others are actually just diagnosing what they're actually in at the very moment. But it's a very hard pill to swallow when it comes to the fact that we are a group of individuals that are predisposed to take our own lives. That's a hard pill to swallow. I had a friend years ago. I've talked about him before. I don't say his name out of respect for his family and his friends, other friends. He's a good friend. He was a good friend of mine, and he was going through some family stuff, and he decided to end his life in a very horrific way. Stepped in front of a passenger train, and he was a very big man, and I just can't imagine like allowing yourself to die that horrifically. But his situation was his family. Like, he had a family situation where he didn't. I think what hit it was the counselors that were supposed to be counseling and helping him and his wife get back together were actually doing the opposite. We're actually not facilitating a mentality of getting everybody back together, and that set him off. That set him off the cliff. And so when it comes to, and he was in his later 40s. So when it comes to Black men and their family, it's funny how all these weird dynamics come up when it comes to Black men and their family. Number one, of course we know this now. It's a fictional allegation that Black men are not participant in the lives of their children. That's a fictional allegation that we know to be very false. We also know that Black men are not leaving their relationships as fast as their counterpart women. So they're not jumping out of their marriages or their common law relationships. They're not doing that. And so when you put those two things together, you realize that, and we all know, you don't need a degree or anything to start talking about all of the outside elements that might affect Black men. But now you have a family component. You have a family law component. Family law systems in North America, for the most part, are not very nice to men in general. And if you think about a conspiracy, I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm not. I want to let you know that the family law. I'm not going to speak for America. I'm going to speak for right here in Toronto, right here in Canada. The liberal family law system. I have to call it liberal because it was really done by them. The family law system was created the way that the Family Law Act in Canada specifically, and I am sure it is the same everywhere in North America, but I'm only going to speak for what I know. The Family Law Act, actually, it's a little different in North Carolina, but because I have a friend going through something in North Carolina, and she was amazed at how much rights it affords men in North Carolina. But in Toronto, Canada, and Ontario, the Family Law Act was actually created to break up minority relationships. It was actually put together specifically to ensure that women of ethnicity were more dependent upon a detrimental family situation and dependent upon government aid than dependent upon the men who have sired children with them. Even to the point where it is so prejudicial that it doesn't even look into the economic balance. It doesn't look into anything else. It just grossly prejudices the men, period. And disparity with really bothers me. I'm a very bad emotional place. I remember somebody asked me one time, and they said, what do you believe your dominant gift is? Right? They sat back and they said, what is your dominant gift? What do you think you do well? Right? Because we were strategizing, planning or starting a business at the time. Remember, I was younger, probably in my early 30s, and at the time I had a very good job. I was working for a government organization. I was a cop, and they asked, and but I felt I was not making enough money. I felt like, man, even this job, it still got me in a position where I'm still dealing with poverty. I felt I was dealing with poverty. I was a policeman. I think I was making at the time $89,000 a year, and I felt like the cost of living in the city is so terrible. I was paying alimony, I was paying child support. I was like, this is like, I still feel like I'm impoverished. So I was thinking, what do I do well? They were sitting down, we're strategizing, what do I do well? And like, the time I was still working on my master's degree and improving myself. I had an undergrad degree. I said, the best things I do is being a father. Like, I'm really good at that. And you would think all these other skills, and I wrote a bunch of them down. I said, the best thing I do is being a dad. Like, I'm really good at that. And I just kind of heard it in my mind. God says to go out there and be a father to a generation. And it actually stimulated a business that set me up. Like, it was a business that got me going, allowed me to buy a house with it. It was I started a foster home that was for at-risk boys. It blew up. Like, it was great. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. It gave me a mid-double figure income almost immediately as I connected with the various social services agencies. It was one of the best moves I've ever made financially in my life. And I was single. And I should have probably stayed there too. But I was single. I was doing well. I was absolutely fantastic. It was a great dynamic. And that is the time that my ex-wife walked into my life, meeting me in that state. I was a great eligible bachelor, doing great financially, having a business, having a great career. It was absolutely the best possible scenario for me. We all know what could happen next, but let me see. Thank you for sharing this information, my brother. I thought I was the only one that got in the mode of silence, sometimes causing you to feel trapped. Absolutely. And even like telling stories like this, Georgia Media Center, when you tell stories like this, you reflect. And man, I think I do a lot of reflection, and my reflection is usually very negative, because I say to myself, you're too intelligent to be this broke, and you messed that up, you failed here, you jacked that up, you messed this up. I'm very when I analyze me, I'm very critical. When I'm having a conversation with myself, I'm very critical of me. I'm my best critic. Nobody has to ever tell me I'm extremely accountable, especially retrospectively. I'm very accountable. I believe in the concept that if you are the leader, it's your fault, period. You can't call yourself the head of the household and then blame other people for the household issues. You got to take all that accountability and responsibility for yourself. So I do that a lot. And so when I reflect, I say, man, your life was here, now it's there. You took this turn and it affected this. You made that decision and it affected this. And when you have a lot of life behind you, which happens after half a century, you know, and you're not in the ideal place that you hoped and you thought you were going to be, you know, it causes you to pause. So I took a well needed pause. I needed to pause for a few days, and I apologize because I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm actually going to work it out while I'm still keeping the show and keeping the channel and everything else going. And I think these are also the times where if you don't have a relationship with God, really, if you don't have a really, and I don't mean a relationship with God where you're just a person who speaks and to an invisible person you don't know, and who you believe is there, but you don't have a relationship with understanding how He works through His Word, through His Bible, and things like that. Man, that depression pit falls a lot deeper. God has saved me from diving into the pits of my depression very far. Like, everybody gets depressed, right? Everybody gets depressed. Depression is an illness, right? Everybody gets depressed. Every single human being gets depressed. Even animals get depressed sometimes, I was told. But and you can see it, dogs and whatnot, they might get depressed. But I feel depression is an illness, and I feel being depressed, that's what I should have called it. Being depressed is something that we just have to self-diagnose. We have to understand. And sometimes you have to take time. And, when you take the time, you also have to make sure you don't take too much time. You don't overdo it. And I remember myself, like when I got a divorce, I was like, I did some stuff where I didn't want to brush. Weirdest thing, I didn't want to brush my teeth. I went through this phase where I stopped brushing my teeth. I didn't even acknowledge it. I was just like, I don't have time to brush my teeth today. I don't have time to brush my teeth today. I'm embarrassed to tell you how long I went on with that. And at the time I had full benefits and everything, and I really recognized, I was like, this is not good. I went straight to the dentist and had him, check me out. And it was a period of time I did not brush my teeth. Okay, I'm telling you, it was a period of time. And he's like, what's going on? And I said, yeah, I went through going through this and that. And he goes, okay, so that's depression. He was like, that's depression. And it's the funniest thing. It was really my dentist who got me out of that. He put me back into a routine dealing with my teeth. And the routine gave me something to lean on, not just for my teeth, right? To get out of the depression route, right? And the last one I'm going to throw at you is that men medicate themselves with sometimes women, right? Which is the absolute worst possibility. That's the worst one, because there's a multiple amount of things that can happen, but you're either medicating yourself with very toxic human beings, or you're diving into trauma bonding relationships, which is terrible, because once you drive into this trauma bonding relationship, which is taking you past your trauma, you're either not over the first situation, or you're not really into the one thing situation that you're in, and that busts up in your face, and then the process starts all over again. So this stuff is not a joke. This stuff is not a joke. You have to be a really responsible human being. Ladies, you also have a gene, or the capacity, or the culture, or the socialization to deal with depression in a very different way than we do. Our friend network, men don't have that friend network that does that. We don't really do that well. Emotions and things for men, how we express our emotions, just based on how we were raised and geared, are still very different. Some brothers deal with anger You know, other brothers deal with addictions, and I'm not a guy that I don't use any of that. I'm not one. I'm not. You can barely give me an aspirin. I don't. Can't give me a marijuana. You can give me a little bit of alcohol now. I take a little alcohol, but I don't. I think when I get into my rut, I definitely drink less. I'm just not interested in having any alcoholic beverage in my brain. I tell guys all the time, I'm always high. What do I mean by that? I mean, my brain is so out there. I don't need a substance. I don't need marijuana, coke. I don't need a drink. I don't need anything to stimulate my brain. My brain is always stimulated. I talk in my sleep. My brain never turns off. So that's the last thing I want. And thankfully, I'm wired like that physiologically. I don't require another substance. I require the stimuli of activity. I need to get out of the house. I go here, I go there. I find myself just moving, wandering, going out, finding things to stimulate myself, working. I put myself in a position where I'm working, 12, 14 hours simply to keep my brain off of the things that my brain is bothering me. And when I do that, what does it affect? The channel, right? I move into a place where I don't have time for the channel because I'm trying to stimulate my brain because I don't want to think about the things that are bothering me. Mental health, right? This is Del K. Brereton. This is the real spiel. I'm coming back. I have a busy weekend planned. This is Toronto Carnival this weekend, and the goal is to take my daughters to some of the carnival. The Caribbean culture is very, very powerful. It's very strong. The church culture doesn't really like carnival here. Conservative Pentecostals don't really go to carnival, who are from Toronto, who are from the Caribbean in Toronto. Conservative Pentecostals outside of Canada actually come to carnival. I was so shocked when I spoke to so many Baptists and others that actually like coming to the carnival because for them it's cultural. They don't see it. They're not playing mass. They're not reveling. They're not doing all these things. They're just coming to North America's absolutely best carnival, which is in Toronto. So yeah, it's going to be a very busy weekend for us, and myself, I'm working a lot. I made sure like I said, I plugged myself into working a lot because I just don't want my brain to just fall into a rut. So I'm still going to make a lot of time for the spiels. Friday now, it's my first spiel in a while. I don't know if it's like, even if it's the first one in a week. I needed the time. I really apologize. I really needed the time. But I'm going to definitely be back here. You're gonna witness the carnival with me. You're gonna walk through the carnival with me. We're gonna have conversations in the carnival. Sunday we're gonna have a Bible study. Monday I'm coming on bright and early to the spiel. Tuesday is me and Herman Rome, and so I'm gonna pack it up, double it up. I work today at 2:30, so I came very early to get to the gym because this is my medicine, and I'm gonna work out, go home. I don't clean my dishes too when I'm depressed. Don't do it. That's what man, my sink look crazy right now. But unfortunately, I have people who will help me out with that one. LMS stand up. So we have a scenario where the spiel is going to be in your face for the next few days. Okay. So again, I apologize and thank you to everybody who came back. My email is delkbrereton@gmail, delkbrereton@gmail, delkbrereton@gmail. If you want to reach out, everyone to reach out to me. Thank you very much. I do appreciate the communication and the contact. I definitely needed a mental health break. That's what I definitely needed. All right, just trying to be trying to be a little transparent without being too transparent. I definitely needed a mental health break. I had some stuff that just bothered me, and at many times in our lives, like I'm glad that God has given me the mentality to just understand that in the end of the day, he will settle all the debts. And some things really emotionally bothered me. So I said, let me take some time. Let me not lash out. Let me not come on the internet and go crazy and talk about folks because they're doing me wrong or whatever. I just took the time to say, let me just settle myself in. So appreciate your patience. I love everybody. I appreciate everybody. Good morning, Yvonne. I see you, Carla. Good morning. Check for those who check for you, my brother, man. So I'm coming back, everybody. So you can run this back if you came on late. We talked about man-tal health, and talked about how that worked. And in closing, in my last, I'm going to do for 30 minutes. Enough. You got 5 minutes. In closing, have we ever seen an individual in Scripture who went through man-tal health? Um, my best example, and the example that I use for my life. Um, not that everybody, not that I consider this person like me. I don't think he's very much like me. I think he's worse than me. I think he's one of the most toxic human beings in the Bible, and his name is David, King David, um, and he handles his toxicity remarkably, and the grace that God affords him because of his toxicity is so. I'm relieved. I'm so relieved that David could be so toxic and God could be so merciful, because David's probably the most toxic human being in the Bible. And so David was told by God that the woman that he sired a child with, somebody else's wife, her name was Bathsheba, uh, that, you know, first of all, the sword's not going to leave your house because you've killed her husband to hide the fact that you've got the wife pregnant. And that not only that, this baby that's in her stomach, I'm going to kill the child. God tells him that. And David and I do share this one thing. We have a ridiculous relationship with our children. Like, our affection for our children, even if I felt David is the most dysfunctional father in the Bible, I think the fact that he loves his children in almost a ridiculous way. Even when they want to kill him, he's in love with them. And I think I'm similar in that particular way. But he prays for this baby. He's messed up over this child. He goes into a ridiculous state of depression. He won't eat. They're worried about him. They're worried about he's going to take his own life over this baby. Like, the baby is so precious to him, and he's so remorseful that the child is dealing with his sins. The sins of the father have fallen to the child, and God's taking the child's life. And the doctors and the wise men are working and trying to keep this baby alive. And David is messed up. Like, he can't recover. He's just totally messed up, and he's praying and he's begging God, and he's in a terrible mental and emotional state. And then the wise men and the doctors recognize the baby's dead, and they're terrified to tell David. They don't want to tell him. They're like, listen, we need to make sure that we have people in place, because when we tell him this baby's dead, this guy's going to kill himself, because he's losing it. He's lost. It's terrible. They're afraid. You can go check the story. That's what the Bible says. They're afraid he's going to kill himself. He's going to harm himself. When they come and they told David that the child had died, he absolutely sobers up right away. Cleans his face, goes, changes his clothes, sits down, and asks for something to eat. And settles it. Says, this is what God's decision is, and I will accept it. That taught me a lot. It taught me that when you have the capacity to say, if this has happened to me, if this is what is my portion at this moment, even if I was the cause, if God has served me this remedy, then I accept it. And that's the place where I'm in. The place of acceptance. The place where you say, okay, that's what you're doing, God. you ever call somebody you're fighting with and be like, oh, so this is what we're doing now? This is what we do? I say, okay, guys, this is what we're doing. I accept it. I trust you enough to know that if you have allowed that, then I'm going to just accept it. And so that's where I'm at right now. That's where I live. I've had nothing as horrendous as a child dying, thank God. But I've had a lot of other things die around me. So sometimes you got to go to the place where you say, God, I accept it. God bless you. This is Del K. Brereton. I did it in 30 minutes. This is the real spiel. Accept it. And brush your teeth. Okay? I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.